It's Thursday, January 5th, 2022. They've been mentioning this thing about this House of Representatives. Um, they have some vote going on for this House Speaker. Again, I really don't know how their process works or the system works. They did not teach it in school. It wasn't a path that was offered. I don't know what kind of highfalutin colleges they have to attend in order to be picked for one of these processes to sit in these chairs and get paid and get flown in order to be present. I don't know how it works. Again, there's something that's like, I don't know if it's on a float right now called Mum's the Word. I've heard that in passing. I just don't know if that's a crossover or whatever. So I'm just sitting here. This morning, they had on something I call it called America Promised Land, S1E2. And in there, it shows that in the late 1800s, there was some kind of northeast landfall of a particular population, whatever migrants they were. I think they said they were European on the East Coast. And then they show something about a different population using the Constitution to break something through the judge system amongst the states, um, which concerns me with Mum's the Word. Um, and so I'm watching this learning that fact today about this migration crisis of the 1800s, but they didn't preface it as that. It just was one of these facts that they threw in like a recipe and they just added seasoning, I suppose. Um, so there's that. And then I'm watching. I sat down and I just happened to catch this thing called CNN Newsroom. It's Thursday, January 5th, 2023, and it's E19 as a reference. Um, Yellowstone being whatever it is on the Dutton Ranch with Kevin Costner. It just so happens to be the representative from Montana. So I'm like, oh, I gotta hear this. So he's wearing purple and he's voting for not McCarthy in the Republican Party. He's voting for this Byron Donalds person. And I'm like, now that changes. Like they used to have this toy, it was red, and they had this circular cell that you would put in, and it was a look finder, and you look through it and then you'd hit the switch and it would go around in a circle until you got to the picture you needed. So I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. So now that's a new megaphone that he's using to speak through. And I'm like, if and only if Mum's the Word, what is he speaking? So I'm listening to a version of English. Um, and it was very eye-opening because like they have not began their official congressional whatever. Like I saw in the news, they said they don't have an official body and an official voice until this speaker's chosen. Like that's how important it is. And so there, he even says the representative from Montana says that they've had the most open conversations amongst themselves on this floor of this house while trying to figure out who they're going to choose. I thought that was very interesting. And he says other things because, again, I didn't go to highfalutin universities and colleges like whatever gets here and however they're chosen. They say these words, some of the earlier people before the representative from Montana: fundraise, campaign, something else. I'm like, yeah, again, I wouldn't even know where to begin, or not a path, or not a door that was open for me or even spoken about. So I have no idea how the people that get to these positions even um, get there. So, anyhow, so I'm listening to him. Um, First, he makes this thing, and then he goes through it, and he gets to a point where I think that he did really, really well. So, this is what it looks like.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Montana rise?
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. I would like to nominate the name of Byron Donalds to Speaker of the House of Representatives.
The gentleman is recognized.
Let me begin by stating that it is an absolute privilege to be here standing and serving with each and every one of you. I know we have differences of opinions, and I know we have differences of agendas that we would like to pursue, but I will tell you that we all are representing the United States of America in the best fashion that I know that we truly believe in. So thank you, and it is a privilege. When I walk out every evening from the Longworth office building, I will tell you that as I look back on the Capitol with the lights gleaming upon it, that I recognize the honor, the privilege, and the responsibility that each one of us has taken on to be in this place that we are right now, and the obligations that we have to the districts that we represent back home. It is an incredible privilege, but it is also an incredible responsibility, and I do not take it lightly, and I know that no one in this room does. We are participating in a system that has endured 247 years through drought and through flood, through world wars and through a civil war. And some way we return to this place year after year to serve the people of the United States of America. But unfortunately, over the past 15 years, the process that we use has been dramatically broken. The voices that were sent here to equally represent each of the 435 districts across this nation have become diminished. This through the consolidation of power into the hands of the Speaker and a fortunate few who happen to serve on the Rules Committee, which control every aspect of legislation that travels through this body. The debate and the discussion has been all but eliminated, and the balance of us are left to vote yes or no. Those are our options, and that is what has led to the disintegration of the relationships that we see across this floor. That is not equal representation, which is guaranteed by our Constitution and expected by our constituents. We have had more discussion and debate over the last 3 days than I have participated in on this floor for the last 2 years. And it's healthy. it absolutely promotes the collegiality that everyone is striving to obtain.
This part, I think he does extremely well in.
We're having discussions not just within our own party, but amongst each other as we walk around and start planning for the legislation that we will need to address over the next 2 years in the 118th Congress, that sooner or later, yes, sooner or later, we will begin to function as. Those are the good days. And guess what? Our constituents think, as they watch us on C-SPAN today, that this is how every day functions. They think that this is how every bill gets addressed in this body. And they will be shocked to learn, the ones that you have not disclosed the little nasty secret to, that unfortunately, that's not how it works around this place. That under the current rules and under the current leadership construction, that on fly-in days, typically Monday at the beginning of the week, the leadership on both sides of the aisle negotiate a number of bills, 15 to 20 pieces of legislation, that one Democrat and one Republican stand on this floor. They discuss momentarily, and then they say the magic words: without objection, we will pass this by unanimous consent. And there are two people standing on the floor.
Without objection. Now, don't you have to have an object in order to have some kind of calculatable force? I mean, I remember very briefly physics, but I'm pretty sure there has to be some kind of calculatable object if you're dropping something off of a building to check its velocity as it falls using some principle of Newton and some gravity. I think that they refer to an apple and a tree. I'm just curious.
Passing pieces of legislation that oftentimes are the naming of buildings that don't really bother anybody or affect one's life.
You would be surprised how much a name on a building changes seats in musical chair territory and at some form of game, which is incredibly frightening.
But in many circumstances, spend millions and tens of millions of dollars that the taxpayers are obligated to cover, and their representative was not even here to vote upon it. And that, my friends, is wrong.
It's called changing the landscape. They're literally buying their names on buildings to have some level or layer up. Again, it all depends on this object and the objectified. If they're claiming there's no objection, were we even asked as special cosmic brethren from House of August? I know I was not asked. Not prior to them even hitting the floor. So this becomes a problem when I have the cosmic certainty and the cosmic nursery of future that it will impact and affect. And yet I'm not even being addressed in any capacity.
It is wrong. So yes, we need to have change. We need to fix this broken system. Several of us have taken it upon ourselves to fly in and object to those very bills. Not because we are objecting to the bill, but just to force them to be brought out into the daylight so that everyone can hear about those bills. To force people to come out and vote up or down for those bills, as their constituents believe that they are doing right now.
You want rice with pesto?
That's
or
just one of the little
pasta?
secrets. And it demonstrates, again, how broken this system is. Last summer, we began to negotiate, a group of us, in good faith, a list of changes, amendments to the rules of this body, not to empower ourselves, not to bring personal benefit to ourselves, but to empower you and you. And
Wait for
you,
it.
Maxine. And
Maxine.
and you.
Mom's the word on that
sitting in
one.
this chamber equally. There's no rules. I did not use anyone's name. Everyone should be. Excuse me. Maxine.
Member, direct your remarks to the chair, please.
I will, Madam Chair. Thank you.
It's like magic.
Thank you. That is so that everyone will have equal representation. Equal representation for the districts that elected them. These are not radical deviations from the norm. These are a restoration of the rules so that this place can function properly. Things like single subject legislation that most state houses utilize right now so that we don't have 4,000 page documents that we are given a matter of hours to review that are filled with many, many subject matters that are trillions of dollars in cost. Rules like germaneness, so that you can actually bring an amendment forward on the floor as long as it pertains to the bill that was originally being addressed. An open rule process, again, so that each individual here can participate in the thing that we were sent here to do, to help collaborate and craft legislation and work together. That is what we were sent here to do. These are common sense amendments that would restore the process and give each of us an equal voice.
That has that sound of working together like a union of some sort. I thought that was the purpose of having a central body.
This is how we're going to secure the border. That everyone now, I do believe, has recognized that they're
That crosstalk, that they're not even paying attention to him in this moment of truth and like moment of importance. I know. I mean, if back in Catholic school, that's demerits and detention. I'm just saying, I was in the classroom. I found out the hard way when even somebody speaks at you, you need to slow them down and say, "Excuse me, somebody has the floor. I'm paying attention."
that there is a problem with. This is how we are going to regain energy dominance again, which is not just an economic issue, it is a national security issue. This is how we are going to reduce the inflation rate, by working together. But we cannot call it working together if you cede all of that power to the hands of a few. Hoping for this change will not create this change. And change is uncomfortable. We understand that. But it is not unachievable. And we must make change in this broken system. We must.
Now, interestingly enough, they have on that America Promised Land in this Constitution that they speak of, which is the We the People Constitution that pretty much they base a lot of things off of. It was, I believe they refer to it as the amendment, the 14th Amendment is where they broke this immigration system using a judge. And I can't sit here in good conscience with children that have a future and think that the system was so feeble, so feebly wired, that just one judge could break this amendment. And then there's this mass entry causing mass casualties at some further date when others find out. I mean, there is a central body. Why was this not? Why is something, I mean, they only sit there as a central body in order to name buildings? If there was this breach in national security that was going to impede my ability with grandparents that were already here, I don't understand at that level how the grandchildren can start arriving and this system that is working broke and made concessions for other things that then led to an even further hard time for the survivors on these lands. Like, it's almost, I'm watching this and it's almost in reverse format. There's this Dutton Ranch in the here and now where it's functioning, which is where I believe my brother Star resides, at that level of a functioning ranch. And then there's where I live, which it looks like the 1923 Dutton Ranch before it was ever established. I mean, it is like two different worlds completely, as to one of us was hand fed and taken care of very well, and the other one has not. But yet I brought forth the cosmic child living in this cosmic nursery, and I am not being handled correctly. And neither is then, therefore, that's passed down to my son. So this becomes this rolling issue for the original representative and founding fathers and their children and their ancestors. While it looks like they're opening a concession stand of some sort and just rearranging all sorts of things. I mean, at what point does somebody stand up for me and my children? It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way universe, galaxy is broken. And it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.